A Hollywood legal war that lasted nearly 2 years. A movie about domestic violence, accusations of sexual harassment, a secret smear campaign, text messages that appeared to drag Taylor Swift into all this mess. And then just 2 weeks before trial, it ends. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, real quick, I got to tell you about this sponsor, this app that I think you're going to love. It is called Upside. So Upside gets you cash back, extra cash back on everyday purchases like gas, groceries, takeout. Here's what you do. You download Upside for free. You claim an offer at one of their 100,000 plus locations. You pay like normal with your card. You verify the purchase, and just like that, money back. So say I need to get gas or I want takeout one night, I'll search for Upside offers first. And after I spend, money appears in my app that I can transfer right into my bank account. And Upside's frequent users earn an average of $254 back a year. So to start getting your cash back, click the link in the description or scan the QR code. Make sure to use promo code SIDEBAR because you'll get an extra 25 cents bonus on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, we know they co-starred in the 2024 film It Ends With Us. He was also the director, she was also the star, and according to court filings, Lively accused Baldoni of sexually harassing her on that set. She claimed he made degrading comments, improvised unwanted physical contact, created an environment she described in a text message to a friend, quote, "They're just being creeps, like keep your hormones to yourself." She also accused his production company, Wayfarer Studios, of launching a coordinated smear campaign against her using crisis PR professionals and social media manipulation to destroy her reputation. In December 2024, according to the New York Times, Lively filed a complaint with the California Civil Rights Department, and then this all matured into an official federal lawsuit. Now, Baldoni not only denied everything, but the court filings show he had said Lively was the one who stole the film from him, threatened not to promote it, and then tried to bury him with false allegations, that she weaponized fake allegations against him. So he fought back. Baldoni filed his own lawsuit. He claimed defamation against Lively. By the way, went after her husband, Ryan Reynolds, their publicist. He also sued the New York Times over an article that was titled, "We Can Bury Anyone Inside a Hollywood Smear Machine." But according to filings that we reviewed, a judge dismissed Baldoni's lawsuits, ruling that Lively and the Times were essentially protected. They were protected by legal privileges. So the Times turned around, sued Baldoni's company, Wayfarer Studios, seeking damages for attorney's costs, citing state anti-SLAPP laws. That case actually appears to be ongoing. But basically what we're talking about, this feud, this fight between Baldoni and Lively, it kept going for 18 months. According to page 6, the two sides spent a combined $60 million on legal fees. And then in April of 2026, according to the New York Times, this was big, a federal judge threw out Lively's sexual harassment claims, ruling that she was an independent contractor, not an employee, so essentially those laws maybe didn't apply to her. The judge did let her retaliation and breach of contract claims move forward to trial, but it was mostly against the production company and not really Baldoni. That trial was now scheduled for May 18th. We plan to cover it here on Sidebar. But then what happens? May 4th, 14 days, 2 weeks before opening statements, before jury selection, they settled. They settled. Now, we received this joint statement of the parties in the Lively v. Wayfarer Studios matters, and it was sent on behalf of the attorneys. So Brian Friedman, Ellen Garofalo, Michael Gottlieb, Ezra Hudson, and this is what it says. The parties in the Blake Lively and Wayfarer Studios litigation have reached an agreement to resolve the matters and issue the following joint statement. The end product, the movie It Ends With Us, is a source of pride to all of us who work to bring it to life. Raising awareness and making a meaningful impact on the lives of domestic violence survivors, because that's what the movie was about, and all survivors is a goal that we stand behind. We acknowledge the process presented challenges and recognize concerns raised by Miss Lively deserve to be heard. We remain firmly committed to workplaces free of improprieties and unproductive environments. It is our sincere hope that this brings closure and allows all involved to move forward constructively and in peace, including a respectful environment online. I want to talk about what that statement means. Now, to be clear, we don't know the terms of this settlement. It's not disclosed. Usually it's not disclosed. There's no blatant admission of wrongdoing. But according to page 6, industry executives are kind of split on whether either star can recover. One female studio executive told them, quote, Justin doesn't have enough value in the market to overcome the suspicion that he may have created an unsafe set. I'm not sure he could cast a movie right now. Blake will have to take a break and take a cut on her first paycheck, but she's still a movie star. So what actually happened on that set? Who was telling the truth? Why did they settle now? Why did this case, which almost seemed like it could develop into something like Depp v. Heard, and where you think that both sides have to take it to trial to tell their version of events, right? Why did it end in a settlement? Why did it end in this joint statement instead of a verdict? And in just a little bit, we're going to have on former federal prosecutor and LA attorney Nima Rahmani to walk us through what he thinks happened here. Tell us about the power, publicity, the law in Hollywood, why he thinks this happened. But first, let me just set the scene. Let me give the context. So the movie It Ends With Us started filming in 2023. Blake Lively played the lead, Lily Bloom. Justin Baldoni directed and also co-starred as her on-screen love interest in the film. And according to court filings, things went wrong almost immediately. Now, we have to be careful here because there are two very different versions of what happened based on the court filings. Both sides put them in legal filings under oath. So first, Blake Lively's version. From her amended complaint that was filed February 18, 2025, according to the document, Lively claimed that from the first week of filming, Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath, so the CEO of his production company, Wayfarer Studios, made her feel uncomfortable. She claims that Baldoni spoke about his pornography addiction, that he shared details about his sex life. According to her complaint, Baldoni announced in front of crew members that she had never watched pornography. She claims that during a slow dance scene, Baldoni, and here I'm going to read directly from the document, repeatedly leaned in toward Miss Lively, attempting to kiss her, kissing her forehead, rubbing his face and mouth against her neck, putting his thumb to her mouth and flicking her lower lip, caressing her and telling her how good she smells. None of this took place while Mr. Baldoni was in character as Ryle because both the intimacy and dialogue departed from what had been agreed to in the script. She also claimed that Heath stared at her bare breasts while she was topless in her makeup trailer. According to the complaint, Heath arrived unannounced while she was having body makeup removed. She asked him to keep his back turned, but during the conversation, and this is from the document, Miss Lively noticed that Mr. Heath was staring directly at her while she was topless. When she called him out, Mr. Heath brushed it off as a habit of wanting to look at a person while speaking to them. According to her complaint, she texted a friend on May 24, 2023, quote, I was going to invite you to set tomorrow. These people, whoa, it's like HR nuts today. The both of them. I wasn't expecting that turn. I mean, it's been present, but today I came home and cried. Later on in that same exchange, quote, creeps, like keep your hormones to yourselves. This is not mine. I don't want it. I don't want you gaze or words or tongue or videos of your naked wife. Yeah, it's shocking. Clowns. And she says she reported her concerns to Sony. Another female cast member also allegedly reported concerns about Baldoni's behavior. And according to the complaint, on June 1st, 2023, Baldoni acknowledged those concerns in writing, saying he had been, quote, made aware and that adjustments will be made. Now, she says nothing meaningful was ever done to fix this. So when production shut down due to strikes, she refused to return unless certain protections were put in place. November 9th, 2023, her lawyers sent a document called Protections for Return to Production, and it was a 17-point list of demands, and among them, an intimacy coordinator present at all times, no spontaneous improvising of intimate scenes, no discussions of personal sexual experiences, no one entering her trailer while she was undressed, and this is from the document, there shall be no retaliation of any kind against Miss Lively for raising concerns. Wayfarer responded. According to the complaint, they wrote back saying, we find most of them not only reasonable, but also essential for the benefit of all parties involved. And on January 4th, 2024, there was a meeting that was held in New York. And according to Lively's complaint, she read aloud a list of 20 specific incidents. And she claims, quote, neither Mr. Baldoni nor Mr. Heath denied the veracity of Miss Lively's examples. So the production resumed, the movie was finished, but according to Lively's complaint, that's when the retaliation began. She claims Baldoni hired a crisis PR team, Melissa Nathan, the agency group PR, and according to the complaint, Nathan's proposal included, and again, I'm reading this from the document, full Reddit, full social account takedowns, full social crisis team on hand for anything, engage with audiences in the right way, start threads of theories. And this is key, quote, all of this will be most importantly untraceable. There was a document apparently called Scenario Planning. This apparently was circulated. According to the complaint, it proposed planning stories about Blake Lively having a, quote, less than favorable reputation in the industry and to, quote, explore planting stories about the weaponization of feminism. So according to text messages that were embedded in the complaint, when Baldoni worried the plan wasn't aggressive enough, I mean, that was the allegation, his publicist, Jennifer Abel, apparently told Melissa Nathan that Baldoni, quote, wants to feel like she can be buried. And this is from the document, "You know we can bury anyone, but I can't write that to him." So Lively says that they brought in a contractor named Jed Wallace to essentially run this digital campaign against her. And according to the complaint, on August 10, 2024, a TAG employee reported that they had, quote, started to see a shift on social due largely to Jed and his team's efforts to shift the narrative against Lively. She claims that campaign worked. Negative stories surged. Her businesses were flooded with hateful comments. According to the complaint, her hair care line, Blake Brown, saw retail sales drop by 56 to 78%. She says she received threats. Her family received threats. So that's Lively's version. Now, Justin Baldoni's version. From his complaint filed January 16, 2025, quote, according to this document, Lively, according to him, was the one who seized control from the very beginning of this film. He claimed that she insisted on choosing her own wardrobe, sending her hundreds of images to the costume designer, forcing them to reshop her entire wardrobe, far exceeding the budget. He claimed she rewrote scenes daily, including the pivotal rooftop scene. When he gave what he considered mild pushback, according to his complaint, she went silent for days, according to him. And then this is big. He claims that Blake Lively summoned him to her New York penthouse. And according to the document, this is when her husband, Ryan Reynolds, gets involved, that he allegedly launched into, quote, enthusiastic praise for Lively's version of the scene. Then there was a famous unnamed celebrity friend was also there during the same, essentially, basically Taylor Swift. And Baldoni says he understood the message. Get on board. And according to his complaint, Lively later texted him, calling Reynolds and the celebrity her dragons, and wrote, "They also know I'm not always good at making sure I'm seen and utilized for fear of threatening egos or fear of affecting the ease of the process. They don't give a bleep about that." And Baldoni makes the accusation that Lively also falsely accused him of fat shaming her, which he denies. According to his complaint, she gave him an ultimatum, 2 weeks to recast her or else, and he understood that as a threat to his reputation. And essentially, he makes the argument that she was pressuring him throughout this and that he was feeling threatened. And due to the power dynamic, because she's a big star, that was what happened. Now, according to Baldoni's filing, the 17-point document that Lively apparently sent before returning to production, he says it was full of false insinuations, that an intimacy coordinator was already in place, that Lively herself refused to meet with that coordinator. He claims she regularly invited him and Heath into her trailer while breastfeeding or pumping, and now claiming that those same visits were some form of harassment. He describes the January 4th, 2024 meeting very differently. According to his complaint, Reynolds, quote, launched into an aggressive tirade, berating Baldoni in what Baldoni later described as a traumatic encounter. He says the producer, with 40 years of experience, had never seen anyone speak to someone like that. The Sony representative later said her only regret was not intervening to stop Ryan Reynolds. And as for the smear campaign, Baldoni admits, yes, he hired crisis PR, but he says it was on the defensive, not the offensive. According to his complaint, Lively's publicist, Leslie Sloan, was the one planning negative stories, not him. And he claims the text messages that Lively used were doctored. Specifically, the exchange where Abel texted Nathan, "You really outdid yourself with this piece," followed by Nathan saying, "That's why you hired me, right? I'm the best." According to Baldoni's complaint, that was sarcasm. He says Lively's team removed a key emoji, the upside down face, and omitted the message where Nathan said, "Damn, this is not fair because it's also not me." So according to his complaint, Lively and Reynolds then demanded that he and Wayfair issue a public apology, taking the blame for her marketing backlash, because there was the allegation that she seemed tone deaf about the themes of the movie, but the counter-argument was that was just what she was instructed to do. And the bottom line is when they refused, he says the gloves came off. Oh, and then the Taylor Swift of it all, I mentioned that famous friend. Now, she wasn't deposed in this case. She wasn't on the witness list, but by all accounts, she was going to come up during the course of this trial because Baldoni made the claim that Lively used Taylor Swift, her power, her fame, as leverage to pressure Baldoni, as the two women were at one time very good friends, and that she had a conversation or was there with Baldoni. And during the course of discovery, there were text message conversations that came up, like this one, quote, "If Justin was strategic, he would be like, no Taylor Swift in the trailer," meaning her song, "because that gives you more power over the film. That's your ally, not his." Lively seemingly responds, "Get yourself a best friend who thinks like the actual Roman Empire." And Swift apparently replies, "His misogyny runs so deep, he thinks women are incapable of winning chess matches or making long game power plays." So those are the two versions, essentially. There's a lot more, but I could go 2 hours on this. We've done a lot of sidebars on the back and forth, too, if you want to check them out. But for nearly 2 years, those dueling narratives lived in court filings, leaked to the press, dissected on social media. What do we actually know? What did the evidence show? Why did a case that seemed headed for a massive public trial end this way? Okay, so I want to understand this more, and I want to go to somebody who has handled these types of cases before. I'm joined by LA attorney, former prosecutor, Nima Rahmani. Nima, always good to have you. Okay, so why do you think they settled? Why did they settle now? Because there was a narrative for a long time, and yes, the situation has changed, but there was a narrative for a long time. They got to take this to trial. They got to present the evidence. They got to take the stand. They got to tell their sides of the story. They got to reverse the narratives, whatever been put out there. Trial's going to be the place to do it. Not the case.
Jesse, I was one of those people who originally thought this case would go all the way to trial, but I changed my tune just a few weeks ago, and this is why. The reason I thought the case would go to trial is the parties absolutely despise one another. And this isn't about making money for Blake Lively. Ryan Reynolds sold Mint Mobile for $1 billion. This is about sending a message, clearing one's name in Hollywood. It's essentially a Johnny Depp Amber Heard type case. But with the court's rulings, there was really nothing really of substance left in terms of the claims. Obviously, the first hammer to fall was Justin Baldoni's defamation claims being dismissed on First Amendment and litigation privilege grounds. But when several weeks ago, Blake Lively's sexual harassment claims were dismissed because she was an independent contractor and not an employee, and we're going to trial just on some retaliation, breach of contract, smear campaign type claims. There's just nothing left, not enough meat on the bone to make it worthwhile to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and weeks to go through a full-blown jury trial.
And to be clear, what would have been left over at that trial wouldn't have necessarily included everything we've seen for the last 2 years, all the text messages, all the allegations. It would have been more limited, right, in terms of what the trial would have looked like?
That's absolutely right. So some of that salacious evidence, the voice note, the balcony scene, the text messages, they're not relevant to the claims that were left. Lively's strongest claims, at least in terms of exposure, were those sexual harassment, retaliation, hostile work environment, gender discrimination claims. That was the juiciest, the sexiest, but also the most valuable. And the issue is this: if you're an independent contractor, you don't have those rights. You do as an employee. So, an example I'll give is, obviously, I love being on your show. I love being on Law&Crime. I'm not getting paid, obviously, but even if I was, I'm an independent contractor. So if you say vile, racist, sexist things to me, which you would never do, it's not protected. I can't sue you for it. So because the bulk of Lively's serious claims are gone, there's really nothing left. And I said, when those claims were dismissed, that this case would likely settle.
Clearly, you're not getting the suitcases of money I keep sending to your office, so you might have to check with your staff about that. Disappointing to say the least. You're not an easy find. You're not easy to get on. Okay, so let me ask you this. I also think this case is different than Johnny Depp and Amber Heard because everything came out. Like, if this is a case that you weren't only going to fight in the court of law, but the court of public opinion, there was only so much a jury verdict would get you, right? I mean, half this battle, we already saw the text messages, the videos, the audio, that it made me wonder, in the court of public opinion, I think that's also a reason why this settled, and it makes me wonder at the end of the day, right now, who won? Who won?
I would say that they both lost, but I think Justin Baldoni made a comeback. And you're absolutely right. This was never about the courtroom. This was about the court of public opinion. When you have the publicist being sued and being dragged into the case. And listen, I'm sitting here in LA. I go after and sue a lot of celebrities. I've represented celebrities. So this is part of the game. I got publicists here in my studio that I'm sitting in, and I have external publicists as well. So you have to put pressure on the other side. I think Lively really underestimated Baldoni's resolve. I think she thought that if she filed her complaint with the California Civil Rights Department and then the New York Times, when they published that hit piece, Baldoni was dropped by his agents, William Morris Agency. He had his Women's Advocacy Award rescinded. Obviously, Lively is better funded and stronger in terms of her position and financial resources. The fact that Baldoni came back and really changed the narrative, and I'm telling you, I bet you the majority of people in the comments, Jesse, are Team Baldoni. I think his team did a masterful job in terms of their filings and in terms of how they handled both the traditional media and the new media and social media to show that he wasn't necessarily the harasser or the creep that Lively painted him out to be. And I think Lively came out looking really not likable, but I think they both dragged one another through the mud, and there's really no clear winners here.
I thought the joint statement was interesting because, in a way, it acknowledged Lively's claims. It acknowledged what she claimed she went through, and it also didn't suggest nothing happened on set. There are these references to improprieties and talking about problems on set and the challenges. What did you make of that joint statement? What did it tell you?
Well, it told me, look, and a lot of people who are watching are saying that Lively dropped the case. Well, that's not what happened. The claims that were remaining were Lively's. So Baldoni did have some exposure. I don't think it was hundreds of millions of dollars of exposure, but look, at a minimum, there's the cost of defense, right? Weeks of his time, minimum hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe more, to push this case all the way through trial. So Lively still had some leverage, not certainly the leverage that she had when she initially filed. So to get him to acknowledge something was, I think, important to her because, like you said, this is really about the court of public opinion and getting Baldoni to pay something. Obviously, we have no idea what it was, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was some
Well,
modest sum.
well, actually, it's funny you say that. So, Page Six came out and said Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni each earned no money in their lawsuit settlement. Now, I don't know how they would know that because isn't that the terms of that confidential and not public? But you tell me how that would make sense.
Well, then, if they earned no money and all Blake Lively got was this sort of joint statement and concession, this is a big win for Justin Baldoni, and I would say a pretty significant loss for Blake Lively. I mean, reportedly, she spent millions of dollars on this case. I wouldn't be surprised if it even went into the eight figures, $10 million plus. And all you got was this joint statement. If what Page Six is reporting is true, and look, Page Six is great. I talked to him yesterday about this case. I'm not denying it. Then huge win for Justin Baldoni and his fans.
So let me also lay this out a little bit too. Brian Friedman, who we've talked about before, an attorney for Baldoni, spoke to NBC News, said his client is feeling pretty good about the settlement, added there was a willingness to get the case resolved given the opportunity and the position the case was set. And so, when we were presented with an opportunity, we took that opportunity. He added, I think he absolutely wants a chance to tell his story. And I'm sure one day, maybe sooner than later, he'll tell his story and we'll get to hear his story. But when presented with an opportunity that you don't have to tell your story in front of, in front of jurors and other people in a courtroom, and you actually have the time and the ability to tell the full and complete narrative of what you've experienced, I think that's what he really wants, and I'm excited for him to be able to have that opportunity. And he also said the reason this case was fought so hard was because of the sexual harassment claims. And so when summary judgment happened and all of those claims, 10 or 13 claims, were thrown out, I think that changed the nature of the case and the nature of what it was about and the effect of it, which is what you just said. But talk to me about this idea of would you advise Justin Baldoni to come out and do an interview? I can imagine a lot of people would be interested in that interview. Legally speaking, could that put him in jeopardy?
It could potentially, but I think Lively has learned her lesson. I don't think she's going to go after him again. And obviously, we know how important the perception is here in Hollywood. So I think he absolutely will. He has always sort of prided himself as someone who was on the side of women and women's rights. So to change that narrative, I think is important. So I think absolutely. I don't think Friedman would have said that unless that's already in the works. And he can say with a straight face, again, if the reporting is true, that I didn't pay Blake Lively a dime. She dismissed her case. This was a mutual walk away. And it's just that simple. So there's no reason why he shouldn't move forward with an interview like that, in my opinion, because there's tremendous value to him and his brand. And I think maybe a lot of people that didn't know Justin Baldoni now know who he is. So again, where he was to where he is now is really nothing short of extraordinary, if indeed it was a mutual walkaway and he didn't pay Blake Lively a dollar.
What do you think the trial would have looked like? I mean, again, it was very limited. It was right Blake Lively against his production company, not even against the two of them, if I understand it correctly. What do you think the trial would have looked like? What do you think the evidence would have been? What do you think the verdict would have been?
So it's interesting. If you look at Lively's exhibit list, if you look at her witness list, you would have thought that the trial would go longer than a month. But you know how these federal judges are, right? I mean, they keep it moving fast. So I think Lively's team wanted to tell this sort of story of, manipulation and harassment and her speaking out on behalf of herself and other women. And they wanted to bring all these other women who were on set who've interacted with Baldoni to say that he's creepy and this is part of his MO as some sort of uh, type evidence to show that it was just not limited to her, but he was harassing other victims as well. But I don't think the judge would have had it, Jesse. I think it would have been a fast trial. You get into the breach of contract issues, some retaliation issues. Obviously, some of the publicists would testify, maybe some damages witnesses on, the harm to her from the smear campaign. But it would probably wrap up in a couple weeks if you were asking me. Certainly a lot less than Lively originally anticipated, because frankly, I don't think the judge would have had it.
And in terms of the effect on Ryan Reynolds or Taylor Swift or any of the other cast members, the kind of ancillary characters to all this, what do you think the effect of it is, of this development is on them?
Yeah, I think Taylor Swift's probably the second most happy person that this is going away. The last thing she wants for her brand is to be dragged into it. It seemed like, Lively was trying to leverage. I mean, Lively's famous, but Taylor Swift obviously is on another level, to put pressure on Baldoni. And I don't think anyone wants to deal with any lawsuit, but especially celebrities. That's the last thing they want to deal with. So I think Taylor Swift is happy and relieved. She was able to get out of giving a deposition. And I think the fact that she's not going to have to testify at trial is a big win for her. Ryan Reynolds, I think, was dirtied up somewhat. He was on those text messages. Some of them are pretty offensive. Obviously, look, we know that people talk to their close friends in a certain way, and certainly their spouses in a way that they wouldn't to the general public. But I don't think they necessarily wanted all that dirty laundry aired. And it was in a way that I think was not flattering to both Reynolds and Lively.
To be clear, if somebody's listening to this and thinking about the cases, the claims being dismissed, it wasn't on the merits. Like, for example, we don't know what really happened on that set, do we? Or what happened afterwards, do we? These claims, these cases were dismissed on very specific procedural legal grounds, right? And not necessarily because of the truth or the lack of truth or the credibility of these accusations.
That's absolutely right, Jesse. So for people to say that Lively was harassed or wasn't, we never got to the merits of the case, the substance. This is purely a procedural issue. And I can tell you, I mean, but it's the procedural issue in any employment case. Just a couple months ago, me and my law firm and myself, we went to trial against Kanye West. And really the only issue was our client Kanye West's employee, or was he an independent contractor? That's the whole reason we went to trial. The jurors found in our favor, and they found that Kanye West, now Ye, did employ our client, and they awarded some damages. But had he not been an employee, there was 50 questions on that verdict form, Jesse. Question one was our client Tony Saxon an employee? If the jurors had answered no, they were instructed to skip all the remaining questions, sign and date, because our client would have had absolutely no rights if he were an independent contractor.
That's so interesting. All right. Well, look, this is an end to quite a saga. I still, by the way, believe, and I correct me if I'm wrong, there's still one remaining case. I think the New York Times still their lawsuit is maybe active. I don't know if you saw something different, but I don't know if that's where that's going to go or how that's going to settle. But look, it was really mostly between Baldoni and Lively that we were listening to and really trying to focus on. So let's see what happens next. We'll keep in touch about it. I'll send another pot of money your way to always make your appearances on Sidebar. But thank you. Always appreciate it, Nima.
Thank you, Jesse. Love being on always.
That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can also check us out on NBC's Peacock as well. If you want to follow me, X, Instagram, my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you next time, everybody.